That's it. Too late now.
Oh no! Oh well.
It's now out there
I
on
like
you.
digestives. That's a controversial one. Is it? I don't know.
Oh my god, that's
I
very
like rich
true.
tea. They're rubbish, and I
Oh,
like them.
come on. Rich tea.
I quite like
Rubbish.
rich tea, but I think that's like a childhood thing. I
Yeah,
always have rich tea.
No, rubbish. Oh, horrible things.
they are bad.
Oh, no.
God no,
But
Best
let
thing
me.
to do is
we were
drown that.
limited. My mum would only let us have one biscuit a day, so
One
any biscuit
biscuit.
seemed pretty good.
What,
Well,
each day. Wow. You're lucky.
give us this day our daily biscuit.
I feel like there's a dark horror story there.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, hang on. Stop. Right, I'm nearly there. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that. I click on that. Must be exciting watching somebody else trying to use a computer.
How many of these have we done now, Noel?
This is number 59, I think.
59.
So all this good stuff that's been happening, it sounds really bad, all this good stuff that's been happening during the pandemic. What I mean is all the events and stuff that have been happening, I've not been able to really watch any of them because I've been too busy.
Yeah.
It's like all I've been doing is fucking editing. Like,
Will you have like how many stories are in Duck Feet?
well, there are 69, and there is the parallel universe one I haven't written yet. That was the last one. There was meant to be 3 new ones, but in actual fact, I started deleting other. I started to, I thought I'm only going to write one, and I've deleted one story. And I'm seriously considering deleting another 2. Because every time I edit something, the other stories don't. Every time a story gets better, other ones pale in comparison. And well,
So like
the manuscript was meant to be,
and now you're doing the whole thing, and you're like, oh, geez, is this worth it?
Okay.
The manuscript's meant to be out, and it's meant due in a fortnight. But I've got a meeting tomorrow, so I've got good news. So it may not. It's probably going to be not out until later than what it was intended to be. So
I think that's really standard in book world anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much. I'm saying
I think
that.
we better start.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
It's not really old
kick off.
Okay.
But keep all the chat for the interview. we want to know the details.
Yes.
Okay, that's it. I think we're all geared up. Recording's happening live on YouTube. There are a few people waiting outside, so I'll let them in, shall I?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably just 3 people out there, but maybe others are watching on YouTube instead. Okay, here they come. Brilliant. So, Russell, whenever you want to speak, they're all yours.
So good evening, everyone, and welcome to Event Horizon Online number 59. Getting past the half century now, so well into it. And tonight is another sci-fi discussion, and we have 2 authors with us, who are Rhiannon Grist and Eli Percy. Great to have them here. They're going to be discussing parallel universes and parallel lives. Before that, a few words, and that is the first is just hello from Shoreline of Infinity, Scotland's best and only science fiction magazine, award-winning amongst other things, full of great stories and poems and artwork and all things SFF and speculative and fun. So do please check out our website at shorelineinfinity.com. But this is one of our interview series, and the aim of that is to kind of shine a light on the lesser-known spaces of speculative fiction. And the format is that we're going to listen to our 2 guests for 30 minutes. They're going to just chat to each other. They're pals. That's kind of the general theme we go with, is that people who know each other and like each other. So they can chat to one another for about 30 minutes. And then at the end of that 30 minutes, we're going to open it up to a question and answers session. And that's your opportunity to ask questions of the 2 authors. So as they're talking, if anything comes to your mind, any question or thought, please just type it into the chat at the side of this Zoom meeting. If you don't have your chat open, if you kind of hover around your mouse around in this Zoom meeting, you'll see at the bottom it says chat. You can click that, it'll open up the chat bar and you can share your thoughts or questions there. The ultimate message is that you are being recorded. So we're also broadcasting this live on YouTube. So if you'd rather not appear on the internet at all for some reason, then please turn off your camera. That's the best way of doing it. Okay, so that's all for the announcements. I'm just going to introduce our two speakers for tonight and let them get on with it. Okay, so our first is Rhiannon A. Grist, who is a Welsh writer living in Edinburgh. She writes cool as fuck, Black Mirror-esque weird sci-fi and horror fiction, inspired by her deepest fears. Her work has been published by Shrine of Infinity, hooray, Gutter, Monstrous Regiment, and Hedera Felix, and is featured in the Best of British Science Fiction 2019. And joining Rhiannon tonight is Eli Percy, who is a genre-bending Scottish author whose first publication was a letter-cum-poem in Big magazine in 1994. Since then, they've released a memoir called Cracked by JKP Press in 2002, a novel called Vicky Romeo plus Jules by Knight Errant Press in 2019, and over 50 short stories. Their second novel, Duck Feet, which I believe we heard a sample of when you first came to Shoreline Infinity so long ago, is being published by Monstrous Regiment, and it's due out in winter 2020. So please help me to welcome these two authors tonight.
Hello. Hi, Janie.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello, Eli.
Hello, how are you?
All right, not too bad, not too bad. I managed to actually get some writing done today, so
Oh, good.
yeah, feeling a lot better than I have for the last 2 weeks.
Aww. So I was rereading your anxiety gene story yesterday. Actually, as I think I said to you before, that was my favourite story of 2019. I don't actually know if you know this, but the night that we actually met in person, which was at a Shoreline of Infinity thing, was the first time I'd ever actually bought a copy of the magazine, and your story was in it.
Yeah,
and I read it on the bus on the way back home.
Oh my gosh. I
Yeah.
remember meeting you because I'd been out with, so I'm a member of Writer's Block, and we were doing some secret project elsewhere, and I'd just come back into Edinburgh, and I knew you were having your launch, and it was the launch for Vicky Romeo and plus Jules at Shoreline of Infinity's event. So I was quickly having some dinner with my crit group pals, and then I ran across town because I was hoping to sort of buy a signed copy from you, and you were all out. I said hi, and I missed it. I was like, oh dang, and I just sort of said in passing, I'm like, oh yeah, hi, I'm Rhiannon. I've got one in this volume over here. I totally did not expect you to read it and then let alone like it. I've been absolutely like bowled over by when you messaged me and said like, oh, I really like this. I was like, oh my god, Eli Percy likes my writing.
Oh no, I loved it. Because one of the things, like it's like so in your face, and it's so immediate. And the thing that I noticed right away was, like, you've just opened the first paragraph, and there's like this woman who she sees herself dying multiple times, but in the first paragraph she gets killed 5 times, and then she's like, oh, I'll just take my medication, it tastes like banana, and it's like, it's so mundane to her that she's talking about the fucking flavour of the, like it's cowpaw or something. And no, I just really liked it. Lots of lovely, beautiful details with the alternate that's got a wimpy, and talking about how she can feel like sort of side effects of people getting, because they got mowed down by a car. That was it. They got mowed down by a car in the first paragraph, and I was just like, yay, get in there. No build up whatsoever. Brilliant.
Well, hit them with a bang. Really,
and it won an award, didn't it? It won an award.
Oh, it made New Compressors Best of British Science Fiction. So it's in the collection. I'm not the best of British Science Fiction 2019. Wink. But I'm in the collection with a lot of much bigger names, which was totally not intimidating at all. But yeah, I put that in because Noel sent around an email saying, your story is, to a lot of people, not just me, saying all your stories would, they could fit for applying to Best of British Sci-Fi. So I thought, well, you lose every shot you don't go for. So I put it in. Totally didn't expect to get that either, because I still see myself as fairly sort of new and sort of quite small potatoes. So didn't expect that. I remember when I got it, I had to get my partner Dale to read the email for me, because I was like, have I made it up? This is part of like where the anxiety gene comes from, is like I have anxiety, so I get intrusive thoughts sometimes. So I have little moments where I can't quite tell if what's just happened is real, or if I'm just having a massive anxiety sort of jump somewhere else. I think we were talking. So to make this clear for people listening who haven't read The Anxiety Gene is a speculative fiction piece of work about a world where some people have something called the anxiety gene. And this is a gene that allows them to experience the things that their alternate selves are experiencing in other worlds. Now, for some people, this means that they get glimpses into alternate realities and what's possible there. But for our narrator, her gene only activates at the point of death. So she's constantly walking through life, just randomly dying horrible deaths and just sort of like being zapped with these visions of it. And I think I was talking to you, Eli, about this, that this was partly inspired that because of, the way that my life is, I have some stairs outside of my apartment block, and every time I walk down them, I'm never here in the world. I'm always like, my brain immediately fills my head with all these visions of all the horrible ways I can injure myself falling down the stairs, and that's all I can think of every time. And you do that day in, day out, then it does become a little bit blasé to you. So a lot of that was like totally unintentional. That was just me going like, hi, well, welcome to me walking down the stairs, but all of life.
So apart from, I know you said it was inspired by your anxiety, do you see any other parallels with your own life and the story?
I think there's sort of, so later on, not wanting to spoil too much, there's a character who also experiences, they also have the anxiety gene, but the way that they experience it is they are only connected to one other person, and that person is like the person who does everything right. They're leading a perfect life, and this person is looking at their alternate selves, and all they can see is themselves, how they failed to reach their potential. And as much as that character, I've not been very complimentary about them at all throughout the story. It's because I feel a lot of that. Like you get a lot of anxiety of like, have I done the right thing? Did I make the right decision here? Or am I now, doomed to like, I think it's like the booby prize life because I made this wrong decision in one place. So yeah, that's one other place. That used to be, that whole bit about that character used to be its own separate story. But I remember as I was putting together Anxiety Gene, I just went like, oh, hang on, these two fit together. So I just like, slot it in, and boom, everything just sort of seemed to work a lot better. I was like, all right, cool. So 2 story ideas, 1 story. Probably should have eked that out better. Oh well.
Suddenly in my head, an idea just popped into my head there. I was just reminded of a question that a friend of mine asked me the other day, so I'm going to pose it to you. It's like, do you ever have conversations in your heads where, like you're talking to somebody in your head, and then you imagine what they're going to say next?
Oh yeah, 100%. Do you ever have angry?
Do you replay it?
Yeah. Do you ever have like angry showers where you just, you're just sort of like dealing with something or someone, and you're just having this alternate discussion? Yeah, I have those a lot less now. I'm sort of learning to deal with these things a lot better, a lot less angry conversations to myself, especially in the last few years with everything happening in the world. But yeah, totally. Actually, speaking about alternate selves and sort of wondering what happened, there's actually a section in your book, Vicky Romeo plus Jules, where Vicky Romeo sort of imagines the choices that she might have made as well.
Yeah, it's only a really, really small part, but it was really fun to do because I thought, oh, what about Vicky is a working class lesbian, she's Scottish, but she has, but her mum's Italian, And she starts to imagine, what if mum had never came here? What if I was born in Italy? What if I lived there? And or what if I was straight and stuff like that? Is there another me out there that's and that's made different choices, and would her life be similar and stuff? And I sort of play around with that. As I said, there's not much of it. It was fun though.
Yeah, I was interested to find it because after sort of the discussions we've been having, and I'd been reading Vicky Romeo plus Jules at the time, and I saw that and I was like, that's interesting, just having that sort of connection, because I kind of think that a lot about when we think about parallel universes and parallel lives, I think especially in this day and age, there's this anxiety of, are we making the right decisions? I think especially now this year when we're dealing with a lot of things where we're not entirely sure what's the right thing to do sometimes, or it feels like there's a lot at stake. You can end up losing yourself into these alternate worlds of thinking, but what if I choose this? But what if I choose that? And I think a lot of when parallel universes and parallel lives come up in fiction, I think it's a lot about that sort of anxiety. I think that sort of being unsure of, have I done the right thing? Am I choosing the right thing in this place? Which is what I loved playing around with it for that.
Yeah. I think I proposed to my partner just before lockdown. So and we're having this conversation the other day where I was just saying, like, what if I'd decided not to propose on that night, because I had decided that was going to be the night, and then I'd wanted to go to a specific place, and I couldn't hire out the venue that I wanted and stuff, and I was like, no, it had to be that night, and then I'd rearranged it for a different night. But it kind of annoyed me because it was meant to be that night, and then I just changed my mind and at the last minute and thought, no, I'm going to do it like this. And then we were talking about how what if I just left it, and like what would have happened, and I've moved house and stuff like that now, and it just wouldn't have been the same because we couldn't. The thing was, we didn't see anyone to tell anybody, and like we kind of wanted to keep it to ourselves and tell people when we saw them, and then it was like we're in lockdown, so therefore we're going to have to put it on social media because we're not allowed to see people. I thought it could have been so different, it really, really could have.
No, it could. I mean, yeah. I mean, imagine if you hadn't, and then you go into lockdown, and then, I mean, would you still be living together? Like, I'm assuming that she liked you before the ring, and she would have moved with you anyway.
Well, she's still got her own flat because she's tied into her lease anyway.
Right.
So,
okay.
But,
right. Sorry, I was making a mistake there.
No, that's all right. I moved here because it just wasn't feasible for me. I couldn't travel back and forth from Glasgow to Edinburgh, and like where I lived as well. I didn't have a cooker and stuff like that, and I'd been going out to cafes and stuff because of my disability. I don't cook for myself, so I'd been going to like cafes in my street, and they all closed. So I had to think about where can I go. Yeah. So if you were I was going to ask you, if you were going to visit any parallel universe, what would you visit? Anywhere in your life that you could?
Oh, see, now you asked me something like this of like, if I could have any parallel universe, which it was, and I remember we chatted over email about this, and I had my joke one of like, the one where Trump isn't president and Brexit isn't a thing. Sorry, #politics. And then I said more seriously, kind of like the one where I've done everything right, so I wouldn't be worried about it all the time. But then how But one I would like to visit, just out of pure like, I don't know. I'm trying to think, because there's ones. So we're talking about different types of parallel universes here. So there's parallel universes that are split by choice, and I briefly had the opportunity to move to Amsterdam about 3 years ago. Ooh. Yeah, I ended up turning it down because I had this whole sort of life realization thing, and I thought, no, I want to stay in Edinburgh. So I wouldn't mind checking out, savvy European Rhiannon, living it up in Amsterdam. Wouldn't mind checking in on that. I think I just want to check that she's all right, because I sort of stayed and I did a whole bunch of other stuff that sort of like focused on me and my well-being. So I guess I'd want to sort of go and check in on that alternate Rhiannon, just to go like, you're right, love, you're doing okay, you found new friends. So I think that's one based on chance. So there's the parallel universes that just come on like chance. So like, I'm trying to think of something where I felt really lucky, or one where I didn't feel quite so lucky. Any time that I've won the lottery when I didn't in this universe, that'd be cool. I just want to go and see, and basically to feel like, oh, being that rich maybe didn't make her as happy as I thought. Probably did though. I probably turn up thinking like, oh yeah, but it didn't make you that happy, did it? And she'd be like, no, it's brilliant. I'm in bliss. My rich alternate self living it up. But for an alternate universe where it's just like the rules of this universe but different, this is going to sound really silly, just one where we can fly. I just want to be able to fly. That'd be nice. Here I am trying to like, go and be like scientific, or like, oh yeah, these are the different types of parallel universes you can have. And I'm like, I just want to have the power of flight.
I think I was watching something the other night. I was watching something the other night, and the film was slightly different from what I'd imagined it being about. And I can't remember what it's called now, but it was really, really bad. But one of the things that I noticed was it wasn't just the film itself. It's that there seems to be this one trope that keeps coming up in parallel universe films, where somebody will say, "Oh, I've got this inventor friend who's opened a wormhole. Do you want to go to another dimension? Yeah, sure, let's do it." And I thought, what are all these people just deciding? Oh, mom will just jump down this hole and we'll go to this place because we fancy it. And Whereas I'd be like, somebody came to me and said, "Oh, I've opened a wormhole. Do you fancy going to, this alternate place?" I'd be like, "What have you been smoking?" What's that? And then I'd be like, and also, what's the chances we'll get back?
Yeah.
But I've seen this coming up again and again with stuff I've been Sliders didn't do it. I mean, that has its own issues, right? But they didn't actually do that because their whole TV series was based on the fact that they're lost and they can't get back home. But yeah, there's lots of really, really bad tropes that I've been noticing.
Yeah, there is a lot in science fiction films, especially, where there is the whole one casual super physicist friend who's experimenting with this, and you can walk right into their lab. Yeah, and two people just going like, yeah, all right, sounds like fun, let's go do something dangerous and go see dinosaurs for real. Like, what? Actually, I think so. A book that I think that does that whole alternate worlds thing really well. Oh no, I don't know if it gives spoilers though. So maybe shouldn't. It's recently come out. Anybody who doesn't want spoilers for any books that have recently come out, just plug your ears. Has everybody plugged their ears? I'm assuming you've plugged your ears. Piranesi, Susanna, I've got it here. Susanna Clarke just finished that. And that actually, that puts in the fear. Like there's a bit where the main character is entering that alternate world, and it's scary. It's the scariest part. And it actually shows the fear of like walking into sort of a world that's sort of level to your own. I'm like, oh, that's the first time I've seen one that actually shows the real fear of passing into one. I was like, it was really scary, but they kind of like use lots of like an occult thing to do it. Yeah, that one's good. Okay, spoiler
story. Oh, sorry. What's the story that you recommended to me recently? It was really, really good. The one in Uncanny magazine. It was really, really great.
Sarah Pinska's and then there was End to the Mind.
That's it. That was fantastic.
Oh, she's so good.
I haven't read anything else by her, but that was when you said to me read this one. But you didn't tell me it was a murder mystery one, which I also enjoyed.
Oh, it's such a brilliant. It's such a brilliant.
She puts herself in the story. And she gets. It was an email or somewhere I know where she's invited to go to a seminar with all her alternate selves from all these different parallel universes, and she goes.
It's like they just have a conference for all the other Sarah Pinskas out there, and I love that the very first panel is. I think I'm paraphrasing here, but I think the title of is "This is fucking weird, isn't it?" That's what great. It already starts with this amazing concept of, imagine you just get invited to a conference for all of your alternate selves. And then she turns it into a murder mystery where one of the Sarah Pinskas has been killed by one of the other Sarah Pinskas. And then you're trying to figure out which Sarah Pinska has been killed, and before you can even start figuring out which Sarah Pinska did it. And it's just like, oh my God,
That's so good.
Such a great. Oh no, I just got a message from, so one of my pals from my crit group is watching this, and he's just sent me a message going, damn it, Rhiannon, because I've spoiled Piranesi for him.
Oh no. I've seen several people have been saying they've been reading it, but I don't really know anything about it, so I just knew alternate reality. And it's not so that big. If you got an email out of nowhere inviting you to go and meet all yourselves, would you go?
I think I would. This is another thing. This is another trope you see from people meeting their alternate selves, or a lot in like doubles. I remember there was like a call out for a magazine about horror stories about talking to your, meeting your double, and then you immediately wanting to murder each other. And it never quite landed for me, because I think if I met myself, I think we'd both be just too polite. It'd just be like a tee off or something of like, who can make each other tea first, make sure the other one's comfortable first. So yeah, I'd probably go. I'd definitely go, because I know they'd just be all about as passive and trying to sort of be all like, you're right as me. It'd be great. I'd be fine, unless I find the one evil alternate self. Ooh, with like a mustache. That's okay. That's how
I think I was being fished. I would be like, Becca, read this email. Do you think it's a joke? Do you think they want money off me?
To be fair, if in real life, if you did get an email off of someone claiming to be you, you'd be a bit like, yeah, all right, pal. But how about you?
I'd also be hoping it would be real, though.
Yes. I think it would feel nice to sort of, because you'd feel like this is another person who would know more or less exactly what it's like to be you. But then maybe you'd run out of things to say, or would you just spend the entire time just agreeing with each other? I don't know. How about you? What alternate reality would you like to visit?
Do you know what? I don't know. I think nothing too weird. I think there are points that where I used to like think about, like when I got a place in Aberystwyth Uni actually,
wow.
And I might. And I actually deferred, and then I later turned it down. So I think maybe I would quite like to know what happened. Did I get that PhD?
I've never been to Aberystwyth, but I know lots of people who went, because Welsh. That's kind of our. I think Aberystwyth is like one of the big universities you'd go to. It's a bit like our St Andrews, because it's in the middle of nowhere on the edge of the sea. Yeah.
Completely nowhere. Really pretty. Always raining.
Yes. Oh yes, yeah. People complain about it raining here up in Scotland, but then again, I've always been on the East Coast, and I just think like, really, you're not been to Wales?
No, I mean, I went for 12 days, and it was just raining the entire time.
Yeah, that's got it.
But it was nice. They had a lovely art centre. I don't know. I don't know how it would have worked for me writing in Scots a lot of the time.
Yeah, that might be a thing. I mean, you'd think like a university, because they've got like Welsh-speaking halls of residence there, so you'd think they'd be clued up on like different dialects and different languages, and sort of being all right, okay, that they'd be all right with that. But then again, I don't know. I've not been up to the north of Wales that much. So I don't know. Maybe.
It would be interesting to visit and see what might have happened. So what is the worst thing that you've ever watched or read that has a parallel universe in it?
The worst thing I've ever watched or read that had a parallel. See, this is the thing. I'm really bad at remembering bad examples of things. I only seem to remember the good examples. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Bad parallel universes, or I think it'd have to be something where someone goes, it was an alternate universe all along.
I hate that.
It's a sci-fi version of it was all a dream. I think anything that used it like as a cop out for that, I don't know. All I can think of is like good ones. I even like do you know Community, the TV show?
No, I haven't watched that.
Okay, so it was a comedy that was based in a community college in America, where this diverse group of people all sort of fall in and become friends, and they have sort of hijinks over their college course. And it became a bit of an in joke that there's this one episode where they all like throw a dice or something to decide who's going to go get the pizza, and it breaks it down to what happened if the dice rolled a different way and who went the pizza. And they create this idea of there is like the worst timeline, and that's full of the bad guys, to the point that it's even become a joke through like from 2016 through to 2020, people on Twitter through everything that's been happening saying like, we are in the worst timeline. And even with that, which is quite cheeky, I thought that was a really fun sort of example of it. I can think of other good examples, so quickly coming in before I get pulled off the mic. Coherence. Have you ever seen Coherence, the film?
No.
Oh, it's another good one. I have a soft spot for dinner party movies. So movies like where all the characters turn up and have a dinner party and then shit goes down. Coherence is brilliant. They all turn up for a dinner party in the evening, and then there's some kind of solar event that means for a brief moment the walls between their reality and all their alternate realities sort of thins, and they all start to sort of explore a bit, and after a little while you begin to realize that the people who have come back with them back to theirs aren't the same people, and other people start turning. It's so good. It's so good, like really good, tight, very sort of, really wonderful.
Coherence, he said.
Coherence, yeah.
I have to have a nosy about that.
Oh.
So you mentioned that you'd written a novella recently and we're about to send it out. Can you tell us a wee bit about that, or are you not allowed? Or do you not want to?
I can. So this is something I've been working on for a while. It's set back in Wales. I've kind of, for a long time, I felt like I leant away from sort of being, from like anything to do with being Welsh or Wales and stuff, because I moved out of Wales when I was 19. I had a gap year, and then I moved out and I moved up to Scotland, and I've been here ever since. So you end up with that weird sort of feeling of nationality sort of mix up, where every time I go back to Wales, I don't really feel Welsh anymore because I'm not up to date with anything. Whereas being up in Scotland, you don't always feel fully Scottish. You can't really claim to be Scottish, even though this is kind of the place where I've chosen to live, where I feel very at home, where, I feel very proud of some of the decisions and some of the stuff that happens here. So I'd often erred away from it. But then I kind of felt like this is still something that I know a lot about. So I kind of put in a lot of it's a folk cosmic horror where these two friends, they make their way out to this island where it's a bit magical, and they try and build their own utopia. They feel like they can't live in the world anymore, and they go out to this island and build their own utopia. And then things go horribly, horribly wrong. And it's mostly about that friendship between those two friends. Like I said, it's still in drafting. I'm hoping to punt it out to some places. I'm still working up, thanks to the feedback from the lovely folks at Writer's Block. But there's nothing exciting happening with it yet, other than me staring at it on my screen, willing myself to edit it.
Any plans to write an Anxiety Gene 2.0?
I like the concept behind Anxiety Gene. I like all of I say science. I'm playing fast and loose with a theory called quantum entanglement, in it, where there's the idea of like if there's certain particles that are sort of connected across space and time and even alternate realities, I think. And if something happens to one particle, it happens to the other particle. So that's the science I'm using behind the anxiety gene. But I wouldn't mind going back into that universe and sort of looking at the different applications of it, how different people use alternate worlds, or even one person finding that maybe across all alternate worlds things turn out the same, or they don't have any deviation and it's strange, or I don't know. It's something that I'd perhaps go back to, but I've got no plans to just yet.
You working on anything else?
I have been a massive lockdown cliche and done the lockdown novel. So I've
lockdown novel.
Yeah, well, not a novel about lockdown, a novel I wrote in lockdown.
Okay.
So I ended up being made redundant from my day job just before lockdown happened. So couldn't do the whole furlough stuff. And I'd already decided, well, the whole world is sort of locking down. Let's see how quickly I can actually functionally finish a novel. So I've done NaNoWriMo before, and I've made it up to 50,000 words, but it's not necessarily a finished book. So I thought, right, let's see, can I, at speed, plan and write a whole novel and then edit it? So this is not a very good book. It was more of a case to sort of challenge myself to see, can I put that process in place? So I do have that, and I've got an edited version of it, the first time I've ever managed to edit a novel length piece. And the plan is that I'm going to send the whole bulk of it through to my crit group in early November. So testing our editing process for much larger pieces. I already did that with the novella. So that's kind of been working on, but I'd really like to now, coming into November, after I've edited the novella and after I've sent this through, I'd really like to just sit down and start writing some new short stories that I can punt out. I've got a couple of cool ones about dodos and pandas that it'll make sense when they come out. They're kind of connected.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So I think we might have some questions.
Nice. Okay.
Hello. Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, for a lively chat about parallel lives and parallel universes and all the sorts of places we like to go in. And actually, Rhiannon, you reminded me that I believe I was the editor on your story at that time, and just hearing about it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's a really good story. I remember it now. I think it's got legs, I think you could go more. You could go with that. It worked as a short story, but I think it could do more.
I will keep that in mind.
Just trying to make you write more.
I've got so many bloody projects as it is. They're all written up there. Trying to thin them down.
We get the parallel Rhiannons to start writing them. But
yeah, let's do that.
So it is time now. If anyone in the audience here has a question, then either you can write it down below or you can unmute yourself and you can go ahead and ask it on your camera. So I'll just give you a few seconds. It looks like Simon, is that you there trying? Have you got a question?
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of questions, Triana. So your parallel universes struck me as sort of armies of clones rather than very different worlds. So they were, let's say, worlds a whisker apart. I mean, which I guess picks up maybe a young person's feeling about decisions not made, and therefore I did something else. So any thoughts on the just cloning yourself and sending clone 1 to do something different while clone 0 carries on with the life you have now?
See, I've often thought about that, but then I know me, my clone would be savvy and they would think, wait, why am I being stuck doing your work when I could be having my own? And then before I know it, I've got like a workers' union of clones, and then I'm having to have democratic conventions with my clones. Basically, if I create a whole bunch of clones, I'm basically signing myself up to a lot of just organizing of who's working on what, and are we all okay about that?
Yeah, parallel universes, same problem. And I'll throw in a thought, which I suspect reflects. I grew up in the 1980s when the worst possible world was at least in science fiction, was the Cuban crisis went badly wrong, or actually went probably as everyone expected. And that was a big trope, I think, of a lot of some of the SF I read in the 80s and early 90s. I think nobody remember. I suspect you have to be an old fogey to remember Cuba, but my parents tell me it was a scary time.
I know the references, and I've seen like a bunch of films that sort of, it's almost like a trope in of itself, that people worried about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and assuming that everything is going to go horribly wrong. I think almost the difference with this time right now is that we almost have this naive optimism of like, oh no one will do that, and then they go and do it. So it's almost like the opposite of being constantly surprised by the terrible decisions being made. Yeah. Not quite as bad as having nuclear war hanging over you, nowhere near.
Well, given Trump, I'm expecting we have 4 apocalypses this year. We've had plague, we've had fire, famine and war, as Mr. Pratchett would say, can't be far behind.
Touch wood. Maybe in another alternate universe.
Indeed, maybe we should be. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
Thank you for your questions.
Okay, are there any more out there? I'll give you a few seconds. Jane has just unmuted herself, which is a good sign.
Yeah, I was just going to become visible as well, but I've lost my icon, so I won't.
Jane.
I just wonder, have you seen? Hi. Have you seen the Mike Cahill film Another Earth?
No, I haven't. Should I? I don't think I have.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I do see it because I mean, it's I liked it, so it's good. It's just it uses there's a mirror Earth. It's a mirror Earth that's kind of approaching our Earth. I won't say too much about it if you haven't seen it, but it uses the idea of an alternative self, an alternative sort of reality for a kind of emotional effect. It's kind of like it carries a really emotional story. But I guess that's not really a question, because if you haven't seen it, we can't really talk about it. So forget that. All right, I'll ask another question. Do you like or have you encountered Freud's idea of the uncanny? And there's a passage, I think, when he writes about it, when he talks about the kind of unheimlich moment of encountering his doppelganger. Is that something? I think that might be something that you would like to use in your stories.
Oh, definitely. I definitely use elements of the uncanny, or I try to in some of my horror, as you would have read. Janie is a member of my crit group, so she's well versed in all of my different experiments that have been successful ones and unsuccessful ones. So I really like the element of uncanny, especially for horror, of like trying to take something that's very familiar, almost a copy of like what is normal and real life, and then trying to change just a tiny element to make it sort of unfamiliar, to make it weird, and to make it sort of get under your skin a bit. I don't think I tried to do that so much with Anxiety Gene, because I was very much in that set of like what Eli said, of it being quite blasé and being like a bit run of the mill for that character. So there's almost like the gap there is between the character's reaction to it and perhaps the readers. But in other, for like, if I was ever going to like use, I don't know, that's the thing, because with doubles themselves, I take it quite personally. I feel like if I met my double, I'd probably be all right. But I know one thing I do like, and I've always loved the idea of, is like a mirror where there's just a slight, I have a story about a spooky mirror where there's something just slightly different with what you're seeing. And that I feel is really creepy. I like that as like as a pull. I can't really, I'm sure like Freud goes into it more. I didn't read huge amounts about it. I just have a basic understanding of the uncanny from university, so I don't know exactly why it's so horribly uncomfortable, but I definitely feel it, and I do like playing around with it where I can.
I mean, I think it's potentially really rich for, it's obviously sort of horror genre stories, but I think it is that idea that you said, that kind of mirror that's slightly off, that you can't know, or the unknowable self. There's loads of potential there.
Can I spread that question also to you, Eli? Do you have an experience of that? Is that something? Because your stories too are quite unusual from those I've heard.
I think, well, I kind of fell into writing weird stuff by accident. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I just the bits I've heard of yours, they often take this kind of almost absurdist element in a way. So you kind of maybe not quite the mirror with a slight twist, but you do take this kind of humorous approach or slightly strange approach to looking at alternative ways of living, alternative ways of being. And maybe that feeds into kind of a question that I had that I could maybe ask both, if I can find where I put it. Any thoughts on the idea of kind of living other lives in sci-fi as a trope or idea, and whether you feel that's like useful as an experience for, but you as a writer and also readers, is it useful to be able to express the idea of living another life?
Do you want to go first, Eli?
I don't mind. I don't know if you would call it sci-fi or not, but I'm writing. I'm going to be writing a short story, for the novel that I'm working on. I wanted to add an extra story, an extra chapter into it, where there's a character who wishes that she wishes she hadn't been born, and we see what would have happened. So I was speeding up the novel, if you like, where you see things that wouldn't have happened because she wasn't there. So I don't know if you would call that sci-fi or not, but definitely there's a parallel universe element because she would have been absent from those chapters and things would have gone down differently. And that I keep coming up with loads and loads and loads of ideas, but I've not written anything on paper. This is the sort of thing that I think about all the time. I think, this is why I never get endings to my stories either, because I think I've got the character and there's a million one things that they could do and I can't decide. And I'd written another novel years ago that I've never been able to get it right, and I remember having like three endings to the novel, and then the three endings could have gone three different ways as well. So it's like this, like splinter endings to the endings, and
that's almost like a really cool literary piece you could do, where you do set up your character and then you just have like this, you have like literal branches coming down to follow those different bits. And I know you could probably do with interactive fiction. I know Gavin Inglis, who is probably, if he's listening to this, is going like, interactive fiction. But you could like just do like this big sort of spider diagram of like starting with your character and then split off, and then you see all those different ones, and you could do like a whole book of that.
You're making me worse.
I know. Sorry.
No, it's like I seem to be getting worse over the years. Like I don't seem to be able to finish anything because I know my character really, really well, but it's like they could make different decisions or they could do different things. There's so many things that they could decide to do, and I can never settle on.
It's like you have all of their alternate lives living in your head at once. That must be exhausting.
I've actually had people and characters who have thought, well, like, oh, what if they got together with this character? What would happen? I'm like, no, stop. And I remember when I said to my editor, I want to write a parallel Duckbeat story, and she was just like, absolutely not. And I was just like, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if it will end up going in because like time is sort of ticking and I've still not done it. But it's been really good fun to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll definitely do it. Whether it ends up in the book is a different story.
I think that's the thing about being a writer, as you do have all of your characters' choices sometimes in your head, and all of those different characters as well. So that idea of like living different lives, you're kind of doing that anyway. As a writer, you're inhabiting those different lives. It's almost like each of, oh God, this is going to sound so artsy and blurred, but it's like, it's as if each of our books and stories is an alternate universe. There it is. Strapline. And the chat. We've done it. We've solved alternate universes. in science fiction. We've done it. But yeah, so I think maybe that's something that, you know, you're kind of attuned to it. I mean, I don't want to sort of do the whole exceptional writer mind thing here, but you kind of are spending a lot of time sort of in other minds, in other characters, imagining other lives. And I think as readers as well, you're spending a little time in another life, sort of experiencing that and experience something different, but also finding something recognizable in yourself. Which I think is a less scary thought about alternate universes and parallel universes and parallel lives, because we all kind of have them and we're all kind of living them.
Great, yeah, thank you so much. And there was just one other that someone has commented. It might be a short one if you haven't actually read it, but John asks, have you read Dave Hutchinson's Fractured Europe series? John met him at a convention, and then a year later was a bit depressed that his alternative Europe seemed to be coming true.
No, I haven't, though. I kind of feel like if I do read it, I'll just be reading a recent history book if that's the case. If anything, I'm learning lots of different things I need to watch and different things different people I need to read from this. This is great. Nope, I've not read it, but I suppose it can be a bit sad sometimes, especially if you're writing speculative fiction, because speculative fiction is imagining other realities. How might things be? I mean, God bless, look at Margaret Atwood right now, and she's just watching she's potentially watching The Handmaid's Tale, just sort of like coming true before her eyes. It's like it's become a meme. Because sometimes you write worlds that you wouldn't want to be in, and you just have a what if. And then to actually start seeing it, there's a potential, because I think with speculative fiction, it can sometimes be a little bit closer. It's more of that, what if tomorrow this happened, or what if this small thing was changed, whereas science fiction can be a little bit further away from you. So with speculative fiction, I think there's always that hazard of watching your fiction become reality and stepping through into that parallel universe that you never thought that veil between would become crossable for you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much again to both of you. I'm just going to say a little bit about what's next in our schedule. So next we've got Digital Worlds, Sci-Fi and Video Gaming. That's on the 22nd of October at 8 p.m. UK time. Host is me and Ruth E. Booth, with music from Theremin Hero, poetry by Stephen Sexton, prose by Corey Brotherson, some academic talks by Gabrielle Elvery and Charlie Harbord, and also a game design talk from No Code's lead developer, who is Graham McKellen. And we're also going to have a round table at the end. So if anyone's interested in gaming, specifically video gaming, then I think that's the one for you. But beyond that, all I want to do is to say thank you to Eli and Rhiannon, especially, of course, but also to our sponsor, Creative Scotland, to Shoreline Infinity, and especially who sits on the tech pressing all the buttons, and to our audience tonight. And this will be, this will be put on the internet at some point, so you can rewatch it and look again, and also check out the chat for all those book recommendations and film recommendations that were talked about tonight. So yeah, that's it. So please thank you again to Rhiannon and Eli and everybody else, and we'll see you next time. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Lauren Russell, thank you very much. Good.
All right.
Good night,
That was
everybody.
great. Thank you, guys. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think that went really well.
Oh yeah,
Nice, lively.
that was great.
And we haven't talked about parallel worlds really before, have we, on this channel?
No, we haven't. About time we did, isn't it? The thing about parallel worlds, of course, is, well, writing them is, Rhiannon, are you in my book or am I in your book? Whose book are you in? Are you in my book or am I in your book? Who's the character here?
Like who's the main character? Oh God, now we're going into whole ideas of what is reality and what's around us. I've actually been playing around with all of that with the lockdown book. I have a bit of that, like, how do you decide what is real? Because at some point everybody does, if you actually think about it. I mean, that's the whole thing that philosophy just went down of like, I think, therefore I am. I'm pretty sure there's other much smarter philosophers who've come up with much better things. But I generally got the idea from people who've explained it to me in the pub is that the only thing that you can be sure of is your own consciousness, that you're thinking and therefore you are. So we're kind of just choosing to believe that each other exists, which I think is kind of nice. We're all choosing to go like, you are a whole person just like me. Hello, let's exist.
They're also believing that all the awful stuff exists as well. That might all just be a product of our imaginations.
That is
That's the
another
product
thought.
of your imagination, Russell. That's a bit scary. Who's imagining these horrible things that we're
I'm very disappointed. I've thought about this before, and I thought, there's no way I could have come up with all this. It can't be me.
I'd be thinking, like, you'd think it up, but then someone would go like, no, this is far too cheesy. This is terrible writing.
Yeah.
But the idea of two people or two versions of a person meeting, I'm just trying to imagine the worst scenarios. If Donald Trump met Donald Trump from an alternative universe, would that be something we could? That'd be fascinating. I mean, what would go wrong there?
I don't know, because it does sort of feel like it's really easy to pathologize Trump. He's so easy to pathologize, and I think it's because everybody wants to feel like they can understand him better, because if you can understand him, then you can predict what he's going to do, which is just folly anyway. I think he would either be very happy upon meeting himself because he thinks he's so great and here's another guy who's so great, or this would bring out some deep-seated, well, obviously full-on insecurity of him, because here's another version of him and he'd just be haunted with ideas of like, what if this is the guy that's better than me? What if that's the guy that's better than me? And it just brings that voice of insecurity to the fore, and then they kill each other or something. I don't know. Classic doubles shit. It would all get very boring, I think.
Or leave them alone in a room and they can get on with themselves, leave us in peace.
So many bad mental images.
But there's the other point about writing science fiction at the moment. Well, Charles Stross is always talking about this. Writing near future science fiction at the moment is the kiss of death. So maybe one way around that is not to write about near futures, but to write about parallel worlds instead, so we can still use our imagination about what if the world happened this way, but in a parallel view of things. So are parallel universes about a cop-out for a science fiction writer?
Maybe. I think we were talking about that earlier, but this actually, you bring up an interesting point here, because so when lockdown first happened, EastEnders was still going, so there was a brief moment, and EastEnders is done like, real time with what's happening in our world. And every time, something big had happened, they would just like, so, if like a famous person had died, that, a character would just mention it in passing of like, oh, it's so sad that blah died. And that's how they kept up the illusion that this was a real world that was happening at the same time as ours. But then when lockdown happened, it suddenly became like, there was all these episodes that were gonna then, that had already been filmed and were going out. And their world hadn't quite caught up to ours. And there was a brief moment I thought, are we going to see this alternate world in EastEnders where the coronavirus never happened? Does EastEnders become the alternate reality of Britain? And unfortunately, they didn't do that. And now they have like these hilarious scenes now where you can see that everyone's trying to film it where they're all 2 meters apart. I haven't watched EastEnders in years, but I do recommend watching it now just for watching how they're trying to ingeniously sort of get round the fact that they all have to be 2 meters apart in all of their shots, using like angles and the weirdest sort of stage like direction ever. Everybody is like in their own little bubbles and they're using these wide lenses. But there was a brief moment where it looked like EastEnders was going to become our alternate universe. And I'm kind of sad they copped out.
Yeah, well, I listened to the Archers on Radio 4. It shows my Middle English credentials, and they did exactly the same thing. Then the Archers, they sort of the overlap of the real world of the Archers with our real world, and COVID wasn't mentioned. But then they slipped in this alternative reality where all the characters in the Archers suddenly started talking to themselves.
Oh no! Of course, yes.
So obviously, you recorded, sent the script to the actors wherever they lived, and said, "Right, read this out," and have a monologue, an internal monologue spoken to radio. So each episode of 12 minutes, we about 3 or 4 monologues of different characters, as if they were talking about the story that they weren't actually in. But we
Oh,
were
that's wonderful. Oh, I really like that. That's what I think is going to be something that's interesting. Is going to come out of this. Okay, selfishly interesting, is seeing how all of these long-running sort of shows, long-running fictions, address that, because we've had like a bunch of movies that have come out that are supposedly set in this year, where there's no coronavirus and people are going around like whatever, and it's like. How are we going to answer that? But then again, wasn't it like in the Spanish flu that nobody wrote or did any fiction about it, or there was very little about it, because by the time the Spanish flu was over, everybody was fed up of it, and the last thing they wanted to do was read or see shows about the Spanish flu.
Yes.
So it's like there's no art about the Spanish flu, or next to no art about the Spanish flu.
I have no idea, didn't know that. But
that might be a bullshit claim, but I think I read it in a tweet, so probably not. True.
Oh, I believe you. I believe it. Sounds plausible. Sounds full of truth in us, that one. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
We'll go with that then.
But yeah, I must have been watching television just now, and you get this thing where you watch a program, and if it's recorded before COVID or it's a film, I don't know, my first thing, they're all standing too close to each other. Why are they standing so close to each other?
Why have they gone to the circus? Who are these mad people? What are they doing?
When I was watching that blooming Sliders the other night, as soon as the second episode started, I went, there's a pandemic on. Because they were all social distancing. And I was just like, no way.
You were telling me about this. Yeah, you're saying like very second episode of Sliders.
Yeah.
Absolutely predicted it.
Is there anyone denying that there was a pandemic in Sliders?
No.
No, they all accepted it.
No, it was what was it? It was the parallel university visited the main sort of person, his alternate was supposed to be public enemy number 1, and he'd apparently infected loads of people. But it turned out that it was actually the government had given him this virus, and then they'd accused him of they let him loose, and then they wanted the cure to give the cure to the rich people and leave the poor to die off.
Oh no! Don't let sounds,
yeah.
Jeez.
What's going to happen in America, isn't it, with the private healthcare?
Oh lords, yeah.
Anyway.
But
right, on that happy note, I have to go because I have to go walk my dog.
We are also still live on YouTube. It's all right. Everybody was being fairly well behaved, so I've just had like one of my folks have gone like, by the way, you're still live. I'm like,
I did not realise.
It's my bad. I forgot to switch it off. I will switch it off now. So if you've still been watching this extended edition of this interview. Thank you.
You're welcome. Added value.